The year is 1879. You're a Wells Fargo stagecoach driver, driving a stagecoach along a dusty trail in California. And suddenly, out in front of you, a man in a bowler hat wearing a mask with a long coat on steps in front of the stage and tells it to stop. You have a shotgun rider pointing his shotgun out, ready to try to defend the stagecoach. Mm-hmm. But the man oh boy, that was a great cold open. The man gestures out to show the rifles of many of his armed compadres in the hills surrounding the wagon. You have no choice but to surrender, and the man politely asks for all the money you have on the coach. You've just been robbed by Black Bart, the gentleman bandit. And we're going to discuss his robbery tactics and how one man managed to have a whole band of compadres pull off many, many robberies, all on the same type of stagecoach. Hello, everybody. We at Misfit History just wanted to provide this video with a quick content warning. Some content in this video may be disturbing and is not appropriate for all listeners. Specific details can be found in the description.
I feel like I know this story. Like, I feel like I've seen a video about it one time, but I don't remember it very well.
Yeah.
You know who he reminds me of? Just because of the hat.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Meet the Robinsons?
Yes! The second you said bowler hat, I was like... And then I saw the picture and I was like... Yep.
If it was anyone else that asked that, I wouldn't have known. But we recorded episodes while you were watching it before. So it was like, it has to be. Well, his name wasn't always Black Bart. He started out as Charles Boles. He was born around 1829 in Norfolk, England, to John and Maria Boles. He was the third of 10 children in classic 1820s style, having 6 brothers and 3 sisters. When he was 2 years old, his parents immigrated from England to Jefferson County, New York, and his father purchased a farm north of Plessis Village. And then in 1849 or 1850, Boles with his brothers David and James, who were all either 20 or about to turn 20, or early 20s, I should have prefaced, joined in the California Gold Rush. And so they traveled from New York to California and began prospecting. They prospected in the North Fork of the American River near Sacramento, but didn't ultimately make too much money. They returned back to New York in 1852, just 3 years after they left. So we can guess. We don't actually have like financial records or anything, but we can kind of guess they probably didn't get rich. Both of his brothers had fallen ill during the journey and then died shortly after their arrival. So Charles gave up and ended up marrying someone. Also classic 1850s, am I right? And in 1854, he married Mary Elizabeth Johnson. And by 1960, they had 4 children and were living in Decatur, Illinois. Then, what happened in the 1860s?
I don't know.
That was a pointed question, but I guess we are a history show.
Yeah, but we're not history experts. You are.
I'm not a history expert either. This is a bunch of people that don't know about history talking about history. Well, there was a slight war that the U.S. got involved with.
Oh,
the Civil War.
Yeah. See, I know stuff. I don't know dates.
That's fair.
At all.
Dates are the tacks that hold down the carpet of history. Means they're mostly optional, but then your carpet is just a rug. So on August 13th, 1862, Boles enlisted as a private in Company B, the 116th Illinois Regiment. So the 116th Illinois Volunteer Infantry was a U.S. Union Army regiment that served during the American Civil War. They were organized in 1862, the same time he joined up, and participated in Western theater campaigns, including Vicksburg, Chattanooga. They contributed to a lot of strategic victories in Mississippi and the Deep South. They had more than 250 casualties. Most of those deaths were from disease, though. Also, man, history sucked. Yeah. It's a war, and almost everyone who dies is from infection and disease. Very few people died from actual combat. Which, like, not to say dying in combat is great, but I'd much rather not have to just have most of my regiment wiped out by a march in the cold or something, or through a swamp, or mosquitoes. The regiment got mustered into federal service under Colonel Thomas Lawler. It was composed mostly of volunteers from the Illinois area, and they moved south, joined the Army of the Tennessee, operated under generals like Grant and Sherman, so they had some good leadership compared to most companies. They saw heavy action. So Boles became a first sergeant within a year and got seriously wounded at the Battle of Vicksburg. Mm-hmm. He recovered, rejoined the regiment, and took part in Sherman's March to the Sea. Ooh. So he was a part of some, like, very violent campaigns. Yeah. He received brevet commissions as both second lieutenant and first lieutenant, and was discharged with his regiment in Washington, D.C. on June 7th, 1865. And he was able to return home at long last to his family in Illinois. But he realized a few things. One, the economy post-war is not always the best. Yep. And two, you don't make much money as a private or sergeant in the Union Army. A lot of the payment that was supposed to be given to soldiers was kind of, you'll get it eventually. Like, they didn't have the money to raise an army as quick as they did. Yeah. And so in 1867, Boles had to go prospecting for gold again in Idaho and Montana. He left his wife with his kids behind and sent letters back to them. He had a surviving letter to her in August of 1871 in which he told her that some Wells Fargo company agents and him had had a disagreement, and he vowed to exact revenge. So who was Wells Fargo?
A bank.
Wells Fargo and Company was not just a bank. They were also an express service. They were founded in March 1852 by Henry Wells and William Fargo. Thus the name Wells Fargo. To provide express and banking services. They provided those all over, but mostly in California. But they actually were based out of New York. So the founders were not familiar with the rigors of the Wild West. Mm-hmm. And they sent all their services out to California during the gold rush. And so they focused their efforts on that western frontier. They had their offices in San Francisco and Sacramento within a year of their company starting. But that meant they were easy targets for robbers. And so a lot of the famous robbers of the era got their start by robbing Wells Fargo stagecoaches. Mm-hmm. Especially people who fought in the Confederacy went on because they didn't have an option to get some other type of role. But Charles Boles, he did it for love of the game. He was from the Union. He just really liked robbing people.
Is that where the name bowler hat comes from?
I don't think so. I don't think so. He was much less famous as Boles and much more famous as Black Bart. During its first decade, though, Wells Fargo operated more as an express carrier than as a bank, and they would subcontract with stagecoach lines instead of owning them. That way, if they got lost or robbed, it didn't cost Wells Fargo as much. Yeah. And then by 1866, they essentially became an empire that spanned more than 3,000 miles of territory they covered regularly. And it had the iconic coaches, and it's where the term riding shotgun came from, because they would have someone ride up front with a shotgun to help defend the driver from stagecoach robberies. They carried treasure boxes made of pine and iron with them, and they began to have a lot of robberies hit them in the 70s and 80s, especially in California, where there's mountains that robbers could hide behind and disappear into the hills with and go town to town. By 1884, the company spent more than $500,000 just on security and crime prevention, which they had also an extensive network of detectives, basically their own version of the Pinkerton agency that they used to track down robbers that they had repeat hits from, and to help figure out how certain robberies occurred so that they could prevent it.
Yeah.
One of those, Detective James Hume, led a team of special agents to track down repeat robbers. If you hit me once, shame on me. Hit me twice, we're sending a team of special agents after you. So Bart, at some point, traveled from Idaho out to California as part of his vendetta against Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Now, what he had against them, we don't really know, but it could be something as simple as money that he expected to get received from a bankroll got robbed or something.
Yeah.
And so it didn't arrive. Money he might have sent back to his wife and kids didn't arrive, and he blamed Wells Fargo. It could have been more complicated than that. I mean, it's the Wild West. It could have been as simple as he didn't like how a stagecoach driver looked.
Yeah.
The one problem for Black Bart is he didn't like violence.
Oh.
The war kind of got his violent fix. So unlike psychos like Jesse James, who killed a lot of people during the war and enjoyed killing afterwards, though Jesse was also known as somewhat of a gentleman bandit, Black Bart didn't like to load his guns. That makes robberies difficult, so he had to be a little more polite than usual. He also had one more flaw that most other would-be robbers don't have. I'm going to let you take a guess, and there's no chance you'll guess it. It's that absurd. When you think of a Wild West, and he was scared of something that no other Wild West criminal was scared of.
I think I know it, and I don't remember. The dark?
Close.
The only thing that popped in my head was snakes, but I feel like there was definitely others scared of snakes.
Way closer with snakes. Horses.
Horses?
Oh, I forgot! That's what it was. He was
That
scared
would
of
cause
horses.
a really big problem.
Yeah. So he had to spend a couple years figuring out how he was going to go about doing these robberies. And now in his mid-40s, on July 26, 1875, Boles robbed his first stagecoach in Calaveras County, California. So it was on a road between Copperopolis, which is like my favorite city name of all time, and Milton. He spoke with a deep and resonant tone as he politely asked stage driver John Shine to please throw down the box. As Shine handed over the strong box, Boles shouted, "If he dares to shoot, give him a solid volley, boys." Shine looked out over the hills that were covered in bushes dotted here and there and saw rifle barrels protruding from many of the bushes. So he knew that whoever this robber was, wearing his long coat and bowler hat with a mask on, he must have had an entire gang of fellow robbers armed to the teeth ready to shoot him. So Shine quickly handed over the strong box and then waited until Boles vanished in the area and went to retrieve the empty strongbox, which Boles had opened up and taken out all the gold dust and cash that was available inside. And as Shine retrieved this strongbox, he looked around and realized all the rifles were still pointed at him. And then he realized that none of the rifles were actually rifles, and there were no men holding them. And it was a carefully set up illusion using sticks to make it look like there were rifles protruding from bushes all around the area, and that he had just been conned. His first robbery netted the soon-to-be Black Bart $160, which is more than $5,000 in modern-day cash. Now, how did Charlie Boles become Black Bart? And where in the world did the name Black Bart come from? Because although there was a pirate of that name, not the influence. Pirates, not Wild West guys, weren't super familiar with them. Boles, like many of his contemporaries, had read dime novels and the serialized adventure stories that would appear in newspapers in the era. And in the early 1870s, the Sacramento Union had one called The Case of Summerfield by William Henry Rhodes. He wrote him under a pseudonym, and in the story, the villain would dress in black and had long, unruly black hair, a large black beard, and wild gray eyes. And the villain was named Black Bart and would rob Wells Fargo stagecoaches and bring great fear to those unlucky enough to cross him. So Boles told a Wells Fargo detective later that the name popped into his head when he was first writing his poem, and he decided to sign it. And yes, Boles was a big fan of poetry, so much so that he not only read it, he wrote it. And not only did he write poems, he decided to leave poems at his robberies.
Yeah.
And despite him becoming super famous for this, he actually only left 2 poems that we know for sure were from him during his robberies. But and they're pretty comedic. So Boles proceeded to rob Wells Fargo stagecoaches at least 28 times across Northern California between 1875 and 1883, especially on the trails between California and Oregon. Although he became widely known for those poems, there were only 2 that we are confirmed, but he might have written more.
Yeah.
Paper blowing out in the middle of the fields and stuff could easily have gotten lost, but that was easily enough to assure his fame, because it was heavily into the dime novel style of the era and romanticized a lot of that stuff. He made thousands of dollars a year as a highwayman and stagecoach robber, and might have been the greatest stagecoach robber of all time.
Oh.
Wow.
He never moved on to trains robbing the way other successful stagecoach robbers like the Jesse James gang did, or other famous train robbers, because he never used horses. As we talked about, he was terrified of them, so he just had to make all his getaways on foot.
Yeah.
Much easier to make a getaway on foot from a stagecoach robbery than it is from a train robbery. He was also very polite, and he only used foul language in his poems, never in person. He would wear his long linen duster coat and would sometimes cut eye holes in a flour sack and use it as a mask. He brandished a shotgun, but it was never fired once during all his years as an outlaw, and many times was found to have never been loaded to begin with. So here's a list, I guess, of all of his robberies. He had a robbery after the first one we mentioned. He struck again quickly in December 28th, 1875, on the stage from North San Juan, Nevada to Marysville. This was a newspaper described this one and said that there were 4 men who were involved in the holdup, and that they had the lone robber and 3 other men who were seen in the hills around this stage that were only seen by their rifles, as described by the driver. These rifles were most likely nothing more than the same rifles that he used at his previous robberies. He pulled off another heist in August 3rd, 1877, after a bit of a break. This was the one that he left his first confirmed poem at, and he received a lot of notoriety for this because it was instantly the biggest news of a stagecoach robber taunting investigators. And he wrote, "I've labored long and hard for bread, for honor and for riches, but on my corns too long you've tread, you fine-haired sons of..." Signed, Black Bart. And this is when the name Black Bart became a big part of popular culture in the era. And then July 25th, in 1878, another stage was traveling from Quincy to Oroville, both in California, and he left this little poem. "Here I lay me down to sleep, to wait the coming morrow, perhaps success, perhaps defeat, and everlasting sorrow. Let come what will, I'll try it on, my condition can't be worse, and if there's money in that box, 'tis money in my purse." He pulled off heists in October 2nd and October 3rd of 1878 on back-to-back nights. On the October 2nd one, he was seen having a picnic with himself on the roadside before the robbery.
Oh my.
And on the October 3rd one, he walked to a nearby farm and paid for dinner. And 14-year-old Donna McCreary, who was at the farm that it was at, provided the first ever detailed description of Black Bart. Graying brown hair, missing 2 of his front teeth, deep-set piercing blue eyes under heavy eyebrows, slender hands, intellectual in conversation, well-flavored with polite jokes. So, when you picture him writing all these poems, he's also missing both front teeth. just makes it funnier. June 21st, 1879, Black Bart pulled off another stage robbery on the Plumas to Oroville trail, the same one he had robbed before. And he said to the driver, "Sure hope you have a lot of gold in that strong box. I'm nearly out of money." Unfortunately for Bart, there was no gold in the strong box. October 25th, an interstate route got robbed when he held it up, stealing U.S. mail pouches. This was a Saturday night, so it was a very unexpected robbery. October 27th. So he would go on like little sprees, you can see.
Yeah.
Like they would be like multiple weeks in a row, where sometimes even back-to-back days.
Yeah.
He'd pull off a couple of heists and then kind of go away. And part of that was because he had to walk so much to
Yeah.
get his heists. It would be very exhausting, and he was old. Like he's 50 now.
Yeah.
Pulling off all these heists. So this was when a guy named Jim Hume, who we'll get more into, was kind of putting together a profile for this robber, because he was realizing there was a lot of connected tendencies, the fake guns, the extra men who are never actually seen, the bowler hat.
Yeah.
All of that is connected. The polite language when robbing someone.
Yeah.
Like, that's not common. And he was sure that Bart was a one-eyed Ohioan named Frank Fox. So his profile was not quite there yet, but he was closing in. In 1880, Wells Fargo added another list of a stage robbery that we don't actually hear. We don't know anything about it. It wasn't reported in newspapers, but retroactively, Wells Fargo said that stage got robbed as well.
Yeah.
Probably insurance fraud. September 16th, 1880, in Jackson County, Oregon, a stage got robbed. This is the furthest north any robbery was blamed on Bart.
Yeah.
September 23rd, 1880. So his third robbery in the same September. Which is, I mean, that's some fast work.
Yeah.
There was a stage that 3 days earlier had held U.S. President Rutherford B. Hayes and General Sherman,
Ooh.
who Bart had served under. But on the day that it got robbed, neither of them was riding. He robbed the stage, and Frank Fox, who was the person that Hume thought was guilty, got arrested and was released because he was found not be guilty. So now Hume had to come up with a new theory on who the villainous robber was. November 20th, 1880, this robbery failed. There was a stage in Siskiyou County from Reading to Roseburg, and it failed because the driver had a hatchet. And despite having armed gunmen in the trails, none of them were able to fire a shot on.
Oh my.
August 31st, 1881, another one in Siskiyou County. Mail sacks got cut into a T shape to get opened up instead of being unknotted. This was something Bart wound up doing because he found it was faster. This driver said, "How much do you make?" on October 8th, 1881, when he got pulled over by Black Bart. And Bart said, "Not very much for the chances I take." Which maybe it was an unintentional rhyme, maybe it was a poetic rhyme. So yeah, we'll keep. He went on and on and on and pulled off many more robberies. Probably the biggest one that he tried to pull off or was blamed for was in July 13th, 1882, on a stage from LaPorte to Oroville. It was a stage that was completely loaded with gold, and George Hackett was armed. Bart lost his derby as he fled the scene when it was determined that the agent for Wells Fargo had bolted down the strongbox so it couldn't be removed. But his derby was eventually connected back to him once he had been caught that was his hat. And the same stage got held up again a couple days later, and Hackett, the guy who was driving it, blasted the robber into the bushes. And then they couldn't tell whether that robber was Bart or not until another robbery happened later that could be connected to Bart. So they thought they had killed him, but that was another. There were so many stage robbers, it's actually nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then his last ever robbery in Copperopolis, the site of his first robbery. Bart, November 3rd, 1883, wore a flour sack mask with eye holes cut into it. there was a stage driven by someone named Reason McConnell, which is an 1880s name if there ever was one, and it had just crossed the Reynolds Ferry. The driver stopped at the ferry to pick up Jimmy Rolleri, who was the son of the owner of the ferry. Rolleri had his rifle with him and had gotten off at the bottom of a hill to hunt along the creek and then meet the stage on the other side. When he arrived on the western end, he found that the stage was not there. He began walking up the stage road. Near the summit, he saw the stage driver and his team of horses. McConnell said, later, that as the stage had approached the summit, Boles had stepped out from behind a rock with a shotgun in his hands, and had told McConnell to please unhitch the team and take him over the crest of the hill. Boles then tried to remove the strong box, but it had been bolted to the floor of the coach. And he was ready, and he had a hatchet with him that he tried to remove, but that took some time. And Rolleri and McConnell went over the crest and saw Boles exiting the stage with the newly removed strong box. Mm-hmm. McConnell grabbed Rolleri's rifle and fired at Boles twice, but missed. So Rolleri took his rifle back and fired as Boles ran into a thicket and then stumbled. Rolleri and McConnell followed. Also, it's just such a funny image as they're like standing there and Jimmy has the rifle and Reason grabs the rifle from him, shoots a couple of times and misses, and Jimmy grabs the rifle back and shoots and hits him. So they followed Boles into the thicket and found a small blood-stained bundle of mail he had been carrying. He had been wounded, and after running a quarter of a mile, he stopped and wrapped his wounds in a handkerchief to control the bleeding. He found a rotten log and stuffed a sack with the gold from the strongbox into it, keeping $500 in coins with him, which is a lot of money in today's world. He hid the shotgun in a hollow tree, threw everything else he had away, and fled. There's a manuscript written by the stage driver about 20 years later when he said he had fired all 4 shots. Now, who was looking into... Can we call it, Charlie, the hero of our story or the villain of the story? Because it's kind of like, I don't know.
I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
No, Charlie Boles, Black Bart.
No, I know. You said who was looking into him.
Yeah, James B. Hume was one of the big ones. So he was born in January 23rd, 1827 in Stamford Township in New York. He was one of the Wild West's greatest lawmen. He left home in 1850, headed for the gold fields of California with his brother John. He had panned gold and mined for a couple of years, operated a trade store off and on, and in 1860 began his career as a peace officer, serving as a tax collector for El Dorado County. And in 1864, he was elected a city marshal of Placerville and also selected under sheriff of El Dorado County, and ran for sheriff and remained in office for 15 years after being elected finally in 1865. So he left his sheriff post behind, and in 1871, Wells Fargo hired him as a detective. He requested a year off to serve as a deputy warden of Nevada State Prison, and then went full-time in 1873 with Wells Fargo. So this dude was tough. He was a gold miner, and he was crazy, man. And he became like one of the most prominent detectives of the time. So something cool I saw when looking into him that's maybe a weird coincidence is his sister Mary, Hume's sister Mary, married Matthew McClaughry. And her and Matthew McClaughry had a son, Robert McClaughry. That was their oldest son. And he was a major in the 118th Illinois Infantry during the Civil War. And Charlie was in the 116th Illinois Infantry during the Civil War. And so both units were together during Vicksburg. So he might have known Hume's nephew. Like served under him during the campaign at Vicksburg. So Hume had been trailing Black Bart almost from the beginning of his robberies. And he became more and more a priority as he hit more and more stages. So he was able to hear from witnesses near the scenes of the robberies that there was a polite, friendly man in his 50s, about 5'8", brownish gray hair, gray mustache, matching goatee, carried a bedroll, who would walk around on foot and quickly disappear. There were some people who reported that there were slits in the toes on the men's boots, which would help relieve the rubbing and stuff from all the walking he was doing, because he was walking from Oregon to California and back, pulling off heists. And Hume was aware that this figure that the robbers, or that the locals reported, was likely to be the culprit. And then he heard about the failed robbery, about a guy with a shotgun who never fired back, who was very polite through the whole robbery and wore a bowler hat. And Hume was like, that's got to be Black Bart.
Yeah.
And so, while they weren't that interested in investigating failed robberies, Hume took it upon himself to go search through the area beyond the superficial look that the two stagecoach drivers had given.
Yeah.
And after a thorough search, he found some things that included Charlie's eyeglasses, which had fallen off during the scuffle, some food, and a handkerchief that had fallen out of his pocket. And the handkerchief had a laundry mark, FX07. So Henry Nicholson Morse was another detective of the era, named the Bloodhound of the Far West, or the Bloodhound of the Sierras. And he was an Old West lawman. He was born in 1835, or somewhere thereabouts. His origins aren't well known. And elected in 1863 as the sheriff of Alameda County Sheriff's Office in California. He made his reputation on breaking up gangs of Hispanic banditos that infested Central and Southern California in the 60s and 70s. He shot and killed notorious outlaw Narado Ponce after fighting 2 gun duels with him, wounding him in the first one, and tracking him down and killing him in the second shootout a couple months later. He captured Procipio Bustamante, legend of the legendary Joaquin Murrieta's nephew, in a brothel in 1872. He tracked down the Vasquez gang for 2 months and 2,700 miles before locating their leader in an adobe house in what's modern-day West Hollywood. He provided a tip to Los Angeles County Sheriff Billy Rowland, who captured Vasquez in 1874. And then he retired as sheriff in 1878 to form his own private detective agency, the Harry and Morse Detective Agency in California. So Hume knew that Special Detective Harry Morse was very, very determined and very capable in tracking down using modern investigative techniques, which was seriously missing in the Wild West. A lot of the sheriffs and detectives of the Wild West didn't have detective abilities.
Yeah.
But Morse, he knew, was an excellent tracker and was never willing to give up when he was had evidence to follow through on.
Yeah.
And so the two of them worked together, going to every laundry in San Francisco and the adjoining areas. Nearly 100 different laundromats.
Oh, wow.
They weren't called laundromats, but it's just what they kind of were.
Yeah.
To try to figure out where that mark on the handkerchief came from. So they ended up finding that the handkerchief came from a place called Ferguson and Biggs California Laundry. Which is such a funny name. The proprietor identified the FX07 handkerchief mark as that assigned to C.E. Bolton, a man who lived in a hotel on a nearby street. The detectives learned that C.E. Bolton might not have been a Bolton at all, but rather a Boles. And that he claimed to be a mining engineer and had business trips that coincided with Wells Fargo robberies. After enough of a investigative background, the arrest of Black Bart was soon at hand, and Harry Morse was able to find him, speak to him, and convince him to accompany him to Hume's office in a nearby building. After initially denying that he was Black Bart, Boles admitted that he had robbed several Wells Fargo stages, but only before 1879. He thought that the statute of limitations had expired on those robberies. He was wrong. When booked, he gave his name as T.Z. Spaulding, but they found a Bible from his wife inscribed with his real name on the inside of it.
Oh my God.
The police said that Boles was a person of great endurance, exhibited genuine wit under most trying circumstances, and was extremely popular and proper and polite in behavior. Eschews profanity. End quote. So Wells Fargo pressed charges, but they decided to only press charges on the final robbery, which was the one they were most easily able to connect him with.
Yeah.
He was convicted in 1884 and sentenced to 6 years in San Quentin prison. Hume married Lita Munson in 1884. So after the events of this, went on to have a son, Samuel James Hume. He never actually retired from Wells Fargo, but after an illness in 97, he slowed down and began working fewer and fewer road trips, and then died in his home in Berkeley, California in 1904 at the age of 77. Harry Morse continued his detective work and went on to continually become the greatest detective of the area, perhaps. He broke up the Harkins opium smuggling ring, which resulted in the prosecution of corrupt federal magistrate in San Francisco. Also, we should maybe do an episode.
I was just thinking,
he's crazy.
Yeah, like
he investigated San Francisco's DuPont Street frauds case, exposing the corruption of the city's mayor, Andrew Bryant. He worked on the defense of Theodore Durant, the beast in the belfry who committed sex murders throughout San Francisco. Durant was convicted and executed on the gallows in San Quentin, and his last major case was the poisoning death of Jane Stanford, founder of Stanford University.
Oh.
Wow.
He died of natural causes in 1912, also at the age of 77. So despite receiving 6 years, Black Bart, or Charlie Boles, was released in January of 1888 for good behavior. Also, they weren't that worried about him committing any more crimes. His health had been deteriorating during his time in prison. He had visibly aged, his eyesight was failing, and he had gone deaf in 1 year. Upon his release, he was swarmed by reporters and asked if he had plans to rob any more stagecoaches. No, gentlemen, he replied. I'm through with crime. Asked if he would ever write more poems, he laughed and said, "Did you not hear that I was through with crime?" He never returned to his wife after his release from prison, though he did write some letters back to her. And one of them he wrote that he was tired of being followed by Wells Fargo. He was demoralized. He wanted to get away from everything. And then on February 28th, 1888, Hume, who was still following Boles at this time, said that they had tracked him to Visalia, California, and the owner of a Visalia House Hotel said a man who answered the description of Boles had checked in and was never seen checking out. On November 14th, 1888, a Wells Fargo stage was robbed by a masked highwayman.
Bruh.
The bandit left a verse that said, "So here I've stood while wind and rain have set the trees a-sobbin', and risked my life for that box that wasn't worth the robbin'."
Oh my
Detective Hume was called to examine the note. After comparing it with the handwriting of the original Black Bart poem, he said that the new holdup was likely the work of a copycat criminal,
Oh.
though whoever committed the stage robbery was never found. Black Bart was never seen again. Victoria Tudor, who was a cemetery commissioner, said that Boles had lived in Marysville, California in later life, working as a pharmacist. Some people rumored that he lived in Knight's Landing, California, before being buried in an unmarked grave down there. Johnny Thacker, who was a Wells Fargo agent that worked with Hume and Morse, said that in 1897, Boles had moved to Japan. So,
Wow.
whether he pulled the robbery or not, after escaping, seems like not everyone on Wells Fargo was so confident about what he was doing with his life at the end of his life.
Yeah.
And then in some areas where he's operated, especially like Redwood Valley, there's a Black Bart parade every year featuring a man dressed as him, playing a stereotypical Old West villain in an improvisational stage robbery. Also in Redwood Valley, there's a road from to Hell's Delight Canyon called Black Bart Trail. So his legacy, he's still remembered in pop culture. He's appeared in movies, video games, books, and comics. And we don't really know that much about him.
Yeah.
So what did you guys learn?
Don't trust people in a bowler hat.
I don't know.
Who was the worst person of today's episode?
The Hitler of today's episode?
The Hitler of today's episode.
I don't know. I mean, it would probably be Boles. But,
Whoa.
I don't know.
I mean, we could say the Confederacy.
Yeah.
We could say Wells Fargo. I mean, maybe he had a very good reason.
Yeah.
He did write a letter about it. Poets. in general.
Yeah.
All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, leave a like or comment or subscribe. All of that helps the algorithm. And stay tuned next week for our next episode. Bye.
See ya.